Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special panel discussion looking at successfully investing in mental health and mental well-being. It's fantastic to see over the past 18 months that mental health and well-being has come to the forefront of everyone's mind. It's less of a stigma, it's more of a conversation, it's much more commonplace, and let's continue that narrative into 2022 and beyond. This panel is in collaboration with John W. Brick Foundation, who are doing some incredibly pioneering work, joining forces across fitness, health, and wellness, pulling industry together to really look forward of how we can start to build more constructive, more collaborative, and more purposeful solutions to enhance mental health and well-being. Victor Brick, their co-founder, and I had a conversation about this about 1 year ago and paved the way to this conversation. Victor is one of the panelists. He brings on his executive director, Dr. Cassandra Vieten, from the foundation onto the session as well. Dr. Eli Putnam from the University of British Columbia in Canada, who's also a scientific advisor to the foundation, joins the panel. We've also got Carrie Keppel, owner and CEO of Styles Studios Fitness in America and former chairwoman of IHRSA, bringing her unique perspective from where fitness meets wellness and especially mental wellness. And last but not least, Meg Lam, co-founder and CEO of Neurum Health from Hong Kong, an incredible technology company that really is making great strides to providing better mental health and well-being for employees. A great lineup, ladies and gentlemen, a fantastic panel discussion awaits. Let's jump straight in.
Welcome. My name is Cassandra Vieten. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I am the executive director of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this panel on successfully investing in mental health and well-being. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves briefly. I'll start by saying, as I mentioned, I was trained as a licensed clinical psychologist. That means the type of psychologist who works with patients. But shortly after I got my degree, I became a researcher in the clinical domain, studying expanded approaches to mental health and well-being, including mindfulness, yoga, spiritual practices, etc. And as my career moved forward, I became a nonprofit executive focused on shifting the paradigm so that we could use evidence-based approaches to expand our approaches to health and well-being, particularly mental health, to include a much broader range of methods that ancient traditions know have worked for millennia, but really haven't been integrated into Western medical practice. So I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce yourselves for 30 seconds or so each, and then we'll get into more depth. Victor Brick, founder of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. Would you introduce yourself briefly?
Thank you, Cassie. As Cassie said, I'm Victor Brick. I am the founder of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, whose mission is to change the way the world treats mental health. And how do we want to do that? By getting salutogenic wellness approaches such as exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices integrated into as an essential part of the mental health care delivery system. I am also the founder and the CEO of Planet Fitness Growth Partners, which is a chain of health clubs in the United States and in Australia.
Thank you, Victor. And now I'd like to move on to Carrie Keppel.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Carrie Keppel, and I am presently in the Midwest in Illinois and the founder and CEO of a new brand of club called Styles Studios Fitness. I have spent a career in the health and fitness sector and internationally and in the United States. I am the ex officio of the IHRSA Board of Directors, and I'm very passionate about bringing together the conversation of physical health and mental fitness And I do believe that those go hand in hand, and that needs to become a more mainstream part of today's conversation in society. And it is something that we are very passionate here about making that connection to. So it's an honor to be here with you all, speaking about this extremely important topic.
Great. We're so glad that you're here. And I'm also particularly happy since the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation and IHRSA are collaborating on a project that maybe we can talk about a little bit later. Megan Lamb, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My name is Megan Lamb. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Neurum Health. And essentially what we are is a digital mental health company. And we use data to raise people's self-awareness of where they are in terms of their mind and lifestyle wellness, and then subsequently use machine learning to pair them up with the right kind of support. So we can do that in a very, very scalable manner. I'm a neuroscientist by training. I got into this space, dropped law school due to personal loss, having lost people to suicide previously. So this mental health journey has also been a very personal one. So thank you so much for having me, and excited for our conversation.
Thank you, Megan. I'm looking forward to diving deeper into that. And finally, Eli Putnam, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I am Eli Putterman. I am an associate professor in the School of Kinesiology at the University of British Columbia. I'm also the Canada Research Chair in Physical Activity and Health. My research field or area is examining the association or the effects of physical activity on physiological mechanisms and psychological mechanisms that are really disturbed when people are feeling a lot of stress in their lives. So developing programs with, by, and for underserved populations to support them to become more physically active so that we can improve mental health and physical health.
Thank you, Eli. It's great to have you. So I want to dive right in and mention that even the title of this panel talks about mental health and mental wellness. And I'd like to start with you, Victor, and ask you about this. Sometimes these are used synonymously, mental health and mental wellness, but there's really a distinction between the two, isn't there? Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, there certainly is. Among other things, I sit on the board of the Mental Wellness Initiative of the Global Wellness Institute. And historically, mental health has been thought of as a continuum with little or no mental health on one end, mild mental health in the middle, and then extreme mental health at the far end. And people move up and down their continuum based on their physiology and their psychology and life events. The Mental Wellness Initiative looked at this continuum and realized there was actually two continuums. There's the traditional pathogenic continuum that deals with mental illness. No, mild, excessive. There is also a vertical continuum. We call it the salutogenic continuum, which salutogenic is wellness and well-being. And that continuum goes from languishing at the bottom to resiliency, which means coping, to flourishing at the top. And that continuum moves up and down the illness continuum based on the person's state of mind. So you can have, think about this now, you can have no mental illness, but Megan, due to the loss of a loved one through suicide, due to COVID, due to external factors, you can be languishing. You can be languishing to the point where you literally take your own life, even though you do not clinically have a mental illness. And this is where what this panel is working on comes into play, because through lifestyle choices, salutogenic processes, holistic approaches, support group, exercise, nutrition, diet, you can move up the vertical continuum. First, you're resilient to where you can cope, but you can actually be flourishing. I started the John W. Brick. My wife Lynn and I started the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation because we lost my brother, John, to schizophrenia. Not the illness, but the medication. The medication wore him down. He became immune to it. became psychotic, and basically, in essence, took his own life. I also have and so he floundered his entire life, trying to cope with the three historic ways of treating mental illness, and that is medication, psychoanalysis, institutionalization. Freud started the movement. Guess what? Go to any mental hospital today, any mental institution today. How do they treat mental illness? Medication, psychoanalysis, institution. Nothing's changed. I have a brother, Bob, the youngest. The oldest is John. He's the one that the foundation is named after. I have a younger brother, Bob, that has schizophrenia. At one time, it was more acute than John's. He is now flourishing. He's living on his own. He's working. He's exercising. He's happy. He has clinically, if I could tell you stories if I had more time, but the point is, the illness is the domain of medical profession and medicine. The wellness and health is our domain. It's the domain of the salutogenic processes of holistic lifestyle approaches. So that's the difference. It's kind of self-care and healthcare. Self-care is what we do. Healthcare is what the medical field does. And they do some things very well. My brothers needed medication, for sure. So there's this it's not a black and white either or. It's this yin and yang concept where there's a little medical in the yin of the self-care, and there's a little self-care in the yang of the medical care. But it's two complementary approaches working together in this mental health care delivery system.
Carrie, you've had the opportunity at IHRSA to identify these issues of mental health and mental wellness in a broad range of people, and it's given you a sort of an opportunity to be able to reach a lot more people through communication. Tell us about what you've noticed in your work with IHRSA around mental health and mental wellness and what that opportunity has provided for you.
Sure. Can I just first say thank you, Victor? That is the most clarity I think that anyone, I hope that that's a really eye-opening, just that continuum, and to understand that is just massive. And when people can understand that, we start to break down this stigma or the taboo-ness of talking about mental health. And I'm very passionate about changing. If we have to change the language to change people's mind about speaking openly about it, I mean, look at it this way, like similar to Megan, we partnered here with a group of neuroscientists who, neurotherapists, if you will, who have really opened our eyes to a lot of what Victor was saying in the essence that we can't see injuries on the brain. You know, we can't see what's going on in someone's head, right, necessarily, unless it comes out in terms of behavior. But we can see when someone hurts their arm, or we can see when they hurt their leg. And we're happy to talk about the physical injuries or the physical ailments. But we are very hesitant to speak about what's happening here. And one of the things that's really opened my eyes, my journey with this was very born passionately. You know, when COVID hit, this was a very big part of what I saw that people needed. Similar to Megan, I've dealt with a lot of suicide in my life and even attempted. So it's been a topic that has been personal. But now COVID seemed to be a shared trauma, you know, that we all shared. And it's opening people's eyes to it's okay to talk about the fact that you were affected by it. Okay. And so similar to what Victor was saying, on that continuum, you could be perfectly mentally healthy in terms of not having an illness, but you are languishing, and that is okay to talk about. Mm-hmm. So at IHRSA, it actually was born more out of I'll be honest, like the conversation that we had at IHRSA to start with was, how do we re-engage people with exercise post this pandemic? And how do we reach more people that we know that it's going to benefit mentally and physically? And it started with getting a bunch of people together to say, how do we do this from a messaging point of view? But we started to engage with a company called Clearview, which is a group of PhDs of behavioral science. And they help companies come up with language and messaging that's going to elicit a behavior. And something that was really eye-opening as they started to research our industry, they learned quite right away that the opportunity for us was in the mental health and wellness sector because, and this is the clearest I've ever heard it in my life, is what they've taught us is human behavior and our choices works like this. If we perceive the reward to be greater than the effort, we're more likely to do the effort. If we perceive the reward less than the effort, then we're probably not going to do it. So it's a perception of reward and effort. And in order to generate a consistent behavior, it's called an EROI, an emotional return on investment. And it works like this. If you can see that your effort creates a reward and your next effort creates a reward and your next effort creates a reward, you're going to continue the pattern of behavior. And so with physical fitness, it was about the perception of society has historically been this. To get physical fitness is effort. Eventually you'll get a reward. You might lose a pound because we've always talked about health and fitness being just physical. But really, research shows that just 5 minutes of exercise elevates your mood, contributes to mental well-being. And we've had this service for people, but we've never positioned it that way. So the golden opportunity for bringing these two industries together from the fitness side of it is to make sure people understand that every time they make an effort physically, even 5 minutes, the reward is better mental health. There's science that shows that you are growing more white matter in the brain, and you're mentally, cognitively, you're performing better. So there's all this that we've always done for people, but we've never really talked about it. So the last thing I'll share is that in our club here, we've been very conscious over the last months about when we are starting to communicate outwardly to people about the benefit of being here with us. We've got our team speaking more along the lines of how good you will feel after today's workout, how elevated this will make your mood today, and all of these things that talk about mental and emotional health. And what we've done is connect with these neurotherapists that are here in our city, and we do something called mental fitness, which is a video of like a video blog that we do, try to do once every couple weeks, and we tackle topics and strategies for mentally and physically living well. And so we have spent the last almost 12 months, or actually more than that. I've been over that, maybe 16 months doing that, week in and week out, and just trying to keep that conversation alive and to make people really understand that it's okay to talk about it, just like you would your body.
Thank you, Carrie. That's so important. And I know that you are probably aware that the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation recently did a scoping review of all of the scientific literature over the last 3 decades on the relationship between physical fitness and mental health and mental wellness. And that is freely available on the Brick Foundation website, johnwbrickfoundation.org, by the way, along with a data visualization that allows you to interact with the data that we found. But it was very clear that physical fitness leads to improved mental health and mental wellness, particularly in the areas of depression and anxiety. And for these subclinical or not necessarily diagnosable, but these mental wellness elements. And so, it was to the extent that we now are recommending that exercise and working with fitness professionals who have some skill in mental health should be routinely prescribed for depression. And for anxiety, similarly, the difference between depression and anxiety is depression requires something in the area of 30 to 45 minutes of vigorous exercise 3 to 5 times a week. Whereas with anxiety disorders, it helps to add in yoga, qigong, mindfulness-oriented movements. One of the trends we noticed in this overview of the scientific literature was kind of something you spoke to, which was the hedonic, or the paying attention to not only how many steps somebody moves or what their heart rate is, whether or not they're in the aerobic zone or not, how many repetitions they do, but also how much are they enjoying it? How much are they deriving pleasure from it? How much are they feeling positive feedback from themselves? Because if you can track somebody's hedonic pleasure through exercise and find the types of exercise that they really enjoy, what is their sweet spot or what is the key in their lock, then they're more likely to continue. And we like to say, what type of exercise is best, the type you'll do. Another trend we noticed was the role of technology in fostering mental health and wellness, which is really a rapidly growing trend. And I'd love to hear, Megan, you speak to how you're using technology to foster mental health and wellness. Where do you see this field going?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and for the other speakers as well, and having such an open and representative conversation to start this discussion with. So where we're really seeing technology, and this is to, I couldn't have put it any better, but someone in our community, an app user, said having data being fed back in a way that really made sense for them was like holding a mirror up to them. So that's one, raising your own self-awareness on where you are on that continuum, if you will. And then the second thing is really closing that feedback loop and knowing what to do about it. So technology honestly isn't a solution in and of itself. It really is just like the paintbrush to a painting. It's just a vessel to, derive something at the end. It's not like the end product. But what it can really do well is help people in a scalable manner, remove the guesswork and barriers for people. Especially over here in East Asia, where stigma is rife, it can be helpful to have, something in people's palms and pockets, where like your phone, which you use every single day, which is something very normal to use, and you don't have to go out of your way to access it, and having something right then and there. And it's, so to speak to those 2 points, one is raising your own self-awareness. It's not that, what we found is it's not that people find it difficult to identify that they're in a stressed state at any given point in time, but it is difficult for people to understand when it's kind of past that threshold of it being detrimental and affecting things like their quality of life or their relationships or the way their self-esteem and the way they view themselves. So that's one. Then the next question is, great, now I know where I am, what can I do about it? So the result of having very well-designed digital solutions is honestly really just having more comfort and confidence as part of your mental health and wellness journey.
Fantastic, Megan. Yeah, that's wonderful. And what is the name of the technology you're working with?
Yep. So our app platform is called Clara. Honestly, we flicked through the baby name book, didn't get very far, stopped at baby. Clara stood for clarity, and we want people to have clarity of mind.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, Eli, we've been talking a little bit about research, but you are actually an active scientist in the field of the connection between physical fitness and movement and mental health. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your research and also some of the unique ways that you've been addressing this issue with special populations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this invitation. This is a really exciting panel. I joined the scientific advisory board of the John W. Brick Foundation, I guess a year and a half ago, and I had not expected that it would bring me to meet this panel and this amazing group of people talking about mental health within the realm of fitness and the world of fitness. This is just so fantastic for me. I also love the openness. We don't often in academia talk about our emotions. We don't talk about the experiences that we're having because we just have to do research, publish. So it's really wonderful to hear experiences. Myself, I had, a partner when I was 24 commit suicide. So understand, and it probably helped me go in this whole field, changed from a medical, I was going to be a doctor in that way and went towards the PhD, health research, exercise science, and mental health effects. So thank you so much. This is a really great place for me to be right now at 7:30 in the morning Pacific time. I love it. This is great. So my field is really looking at exercise as a way of supporting people. I completed a couple of projects over the past few years, one with family caregivers of Alzheimer's patients. And we had a group of women and men who were providing more than 10 hours of care to a family member, a parent, a spouse, a sibling, a child who may have had Alzheimer's or dementia. And we randomized them to receive free gym memberships. Not everyone likes the gym, so we also encouraged them to go out for hikes. We encouraged them to find what was passionate to them. We provided goal setting with them. We provided a fitness coach who met with them on a weekly basis by phone and by email. And what we found over this 6-month period for those who became exercisers, their stress levels went down, their depression levels went down. They improved in their cardiorespiratory fitness, which is a given. But really, the mental health effects were just astounding. And it wasn't just like depression or stress. Like, what does that mean? It actually meant on a daily basis, when we recorded how people felt daily, what we found was that from the beginning from the end compared to the beginning of the study, those who exercised for 6 months, their mood went up on a daily basis. Their positive mood went up, their negative mood went down. They felt more in control of events that were happening every single day in their lives related to their caregiving experience. Their control went up, and how much they were ruminating or dwelling on bad things happening in their day, that went down. The fact that we're not just changing like these global experiences of depression and anxiety, but we're changing how people are living their daily lives psychologically, for me, that was kind of mind-blowing as a study, as a finding that I think we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about how is it making you feel right now after you exercise, and how does it make you feel during the day, even when you are not exercising. You're just concentrating better and you're feeling a better place. We did do a study during COVID, the first few months of COVID. We provided an app to participants, the Down Dog app. Some people might be familiar with. And we provided the HIIT version and the yoga version to some participants, and then also just HIIT, just yoga. And we had a control group. And what we found in over a 6-week period, that first of all, shockingly and not shockingly, in the first few weeks of COVID, a good half of our participants, of our 350 participants, a good half could be at that level of depression, having enough, report enough depression symptomatology. And what we ended up finding is that over the 6-week period, those who exercised, the depression just dropped so significantly. And so exercising during this horrible past year and a half experience, almost 2-year experience, can shift the way people are experiencing their daily lives.
That's great, Eli. And I know that you have done some, and you and I have been talking about some research using less conventional forms of exercise like dance or like floor hockey for veterans. Say a little bit more about those kinds of ways of getting people moving.
Yeah, moving is any way of moving our bodies. And I think that we have to work with people to discover their passions and the ways that they want to move their bodies. So one of our projects that we're working on right now is a pilot feasibility project. We met with a group of women living with HIV, and we said, how do you want to move your body? And through conversations, we realized they don't feel comfortable in gyms. They don't have the economic health and wealth that can get them into the gym. And even if they did have it, they just don't feel comfortable in their bodies in that way in experiencing the gym. So we had conversations, and we settled on dance, and they were like, we want to dance as a way of moving our bodies. So we have an indigenous choreographer and a African Canadian dancer choreographer who are creating this program for women living with HIV to become dance instructors, to then roll out this program to other women living with HIV. Similarly, we created a program, a ball hockey program at UBC. It started off at UBC for male veterans from Canadian Air Force or Army Forces, so Armed Forces. So what we were hoping there is to see whether this ball hockey program would get these men who are veterans, who suffer a lot more PTSD than your average man out there, and a lot more depression and anxiety, have increased rates of suicide. We created this program in consultation with them where we're now giving them that group experience, that social experience to move their bodies more. And what we discovered just from our pilot a couple of years ago with my colleague, Mark Beauchamp, what they discovered was that it connected them to resources for psychological support and for social support. So it wasn't just let's play ball hockey, but they met other veterans who were like, I've been where you're at, and this is how I got out of it. And now we're rolling it out across Canada, and we're also hoping to pilot in Australia. And so there are so many ways of moving our bodies, and we just have to discover those ways that are passionate, that speak to us.
Yeah, great. One of the things that our Move Your Mental Health research report that I mentioned earlier found was that it's not enough just to recommend to people that they exercise. They often need support, and that's through technology, that's through fitness professionals, that's through group exercise routines, through gyms, through being outdoors. It's almost like folks who have to change their lifestyle because of heart disease or diabetes, that it's not enough to just do the one thing. It's an ecosystem of activities that can provide a scaffolding until they begin to feel some of the rewards of exercise on their own. You know, we've talked now a lot about pleasure and reward and doing things that people like. But there is another side to it that has to do with reaching a certain level of intensity of exercise to really have the highest level of beneficial effect. That we really do show that the exercise must get you breathing hard and it must get you sweating. You know, there has to be a level of vigorousness to the exercise to have this beneficial effect. And Victor, I was hoping that you could talk to us about this concept of positive stress and, you know, pushing yourself into a sort of optimal zone where you are a little bit beyond your comfort zone, not too far beyond. Tell us more about that.
First, a lot of what we're talking about is related to the two of the most important things for sound mental health, and that is connectivity and coping skills. Eli, what you're talking about with the hockey, you mentioned meeting other people, and Megan connecting, and Carrie, there needs to be a connectivity of we're social beings and we need to connect with others. And of course, due to COVID and the quarantines, loneliness was the biggest accelerator of the mental health crisis, loneliness. And then the connectivity skills, most people, even if they wanted to do something, they don't know what to do. And in the case of the positive stress, to what level and how. And that's where what we're doing and connecting professionals, people with professionals and John W. Brick working as a collaborative hub, it's so critical to get the proper information out, because kind of what you were saying, Carrie, if there's not that reward, then the effort's going to stop. It's kind of like losing weight. You don't lose weight, you stop. So one of the misconceptions about mental health and in general, the Yerkes-Dodson law of positive stress is one of the most critical, fundamental laws of performance. And basically it states that performance improves with stress to a point. Think of athletics, think of learning a musical instrument, think of learning to dance, ballet, think of any skill. Too little stress, no improvement in performance or in improvement in ability. The right amount of stress, you get maximum improvement in performance and in coping. Activity, whatever it be, even dance. If you're going to do dance, or you're going to walk, or you're going to exercise or meditate, anything, make sure you're getting beyond your comfort zone so that you continually improve. And here's what happens, just like with training for cardiovascular training. The more you train, the more your comfort zone moves down that horizontal continuum of stress levels, and the more stress you can handle, the more training you can handle. Same thing in life. If you put yourself under more stress, the right amount of stress, you adapt. It's called resiliency, and you can handle more things in your life. So you don't have to depend on the medication, the psychoanalysis, and the institutionalization.
And Eli, just going back to you for a moment, does the research show that gradually increasing the intensity level is a good idea? Is it better to dive right in and start the intensity from the beginning? Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, so I think the research where they do intervention programming, they always start off participants slowly. They always start off participants at that sweet spot at the moderate level, because when we think about moderate intensity levels, we think about, if you're an exerciser who exercises very often, you're like, that's like not a lot for me. But for the person who has not exercised in a very long time or ever, that is a significant amount of effort. So starting off small and starting off in smaller pieces of, like Carrie was saying, 5 minutes, 10 minutes is, in my opinion, the way to get people starting. Throwing and launching people into a high intensity interval training after not having worked out for 20 years of their lives, or pushing them to go into a cycle class and push themselves for an hour as their first time, you walk out and the benefit does not match the effort. It is much lower because you were in pain. You're not liking the way your body's feeling for the next few days. You may not have even liked how your body felt moving, what you feel about yourself, knowing how you're moving your body in that space with all these other people around you who might be more fit. And if those experiences, that all impacts us psychologically, and that makes it harder to continue. I think last year I had this detached retina. I had a medical leave for 4 months. It was a concussion that caused this whole thing, or a smash in my face that caused this whole thing. And I remember going back into the gym in our building, and I sat there for about 2-3 weeks. I literally went 2-3 times a week and just sat on the bench while my partner was working out and I was on my phone. But at least I brought myself to the space to get back into it mentally. And I'm someone who works out 4 or 5 times a week. So that happened to me so fast in 4 months that I just couldn't bring myself to even lift anything or move my body that way. I can't imagine the effort, the difficulty for so many other people. And we have to be so cognizant of that.
And Megan, I know that your app is sort of a holistic approach to mental well-being, taking into account all these different aspects. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it works?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So what we essentially do is we take your mind and lifestyle wellness. So we can understand things like signs of stress, anxiety, depression, but also aspects of the wellness components as well, like Victor mentioned. We don't necessarily have to have a diagnosable condition. We could be on, more normal, not necessarily bad stress levels. So we take all of that in, along with things like your information about your sleep and your level of activity. And we basically paint like a Cassandra profile or portrait using data. And then we recommend and match up a little mini program that's just Cassandra specific, and Eli will get one that's just right for him. And I think there's something like 10,000 apps on the App Store today, I think the US App Store. So it is really important for us to make sure everything that we do is evidence-based, right? So we actually would do things like a randomized control trial and a validation study in making sure that everything we put forward is safe for people to use. And we're really walking the talk in what we're claiming. So from that validation study, which we're presenting at the American Psychological Association soon, demonstrates that people actually improve in their emotional distress scores by 60.8% within 4 weeks of usage. More research to come, and that really excites me. So I'm absolutely in awe with Eli and his research as well.
Oh, those are tremendous results. Congratulations. That's wonderful. What a gift to the world. Carrie, I wanted to go back to you. And, I know you and I have talked a bit about kind of in elevating the role of fitness professionals as it relates to mental health. Like Victor said earlier, mental health care has been so locked right here, just inside the skull. And we know that mental health actually is the whole body. One of the things that the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation would like to do is create stronger relationships between mental health care providers and the fitness industry so that they're working hand in hand in supporting people's mental health. Tell me what you think about that and where you're going with that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly, we need to do a lot of work in that space to make that connection happen, because our professionals in the fitness industry have the skill set to help people in a healthy way, move their bodies to move their mental health. But I do think that there's a certain level of education for the existing fitness professionals out there about this. And I've seen the shift in our fitness professionals here just in this club when we've been introducing this, and the way their language changes, the way their approach to people change. Like Eli, we've always utilized a smart start to exercise in the sense of helping people start with achievable physically making it achievable, so that mentally they are making positive associations and, as you said, pleasure with what they've done, so they feel those feelings of success to stay motivated. At IHRSA, we've always talked about how, like in the United States, from a gym industry perspective, we've only ever gotten to a threshold of this glass ceiling of 20% of the population that engages with us. And there's always that missing, what we call 65% of probably, we call them indifferent believers, people who know that that exercise, physical movement, all of that is good for them, but they have some mental blocks around it, some excuses. I don't have enough time. There's always something to make an excuse of. So our job is to get our professionals and our messaging and what we do and shift the narrative so that this missing 65% and the 20 that's already engaged with us understand that our services reach beyond their bodies and into their minds and their brains and their emotional well-being too. At IHRSA just recently, I was in a session and I heard some pretty shocking research that just said people that start with a weight loss goal as their motivation to exercise, so from here down, and they're not taking into consideration this, they attend less and they quit faster. because their reason for doing it started with a mental place of I'm not enough. It already started with a place of negativity. So when people, we have to teach our professionals to stop encouraging people to start from a place of negative, right? And at Styles, we have it's part of our whole ethos of our company. It's written on our front desk, and everything we do is all styles welcome, because what we're trying to elicit in people is self-acceptance, so that your body and your mind and everything comes into consideration here, so that we're trying to get people shifting the mindset from I have to do this because there's something not right yet with me that I'm trying to fix. Shifting people from that mentality to I get to do this. And this is an enjoyable part of my daily lifestyle that is keeping me mentally and physically well. So I do think we've got a lot of work to do, in changing this narrative with our fitness professionals, but it can be done. And I know that they're passionate about helping people. So we just have to do the work.
Yeah, and I'm going to move on to almost wrapping up here. So I'd like the panelists to consider for a moment, as our last round, a very, very brief statement about what your vision for the future is in terms of mental health and wellness. Before I go to that, Megan, I just wanted to ask you a little more about how you see this functioning in the workplace or in the corporate environment. How are you integrating what you're doing into, or what's the potential for reaching people? Because as we know, most people spend most of their waking hours at work, and the corporate environment, the work environment is a really great opportunity to address these issues.
Yeah, thanks, Cassandra. I think the workplace is just one such environment. We always say that, so for example, we also recently rolled out to a hotel chain globally to support guests throughout quarantine. So our ethos at Neurum Health really is to support people in the environments where they live, work, play, and now quarantine, because that is now an environment, unfortunately, we have to be in. But specifically to the workplace, I think something that has been impactful that we've done, at least to get the engagement. So I think people generally kind of know like, okay, this mental health and wellness thing is really important. What can we do about it as a workplace? So what that next step in that engagement, activation energy, if you will. One thing that has been in fact impactful that we've done was actually using very aggregate, high level, non-identifiable. So you can't actually tell it's like Bob from IT who's like feeling a certain way, to actually benchmark and show where an organization is. I mean, it's one thing to have that general awareness of, okay, this is a really important topic. But what really kicks individuals and organizations into action is when you can contextualize that to you. I think something the different panelists here are really touching upon is really meeting people where they are, or meeting organizations where they are on a larger scale, and starting from there. So how can we personalize and tailor people's journeys, be it as an individual or as an organization?
That's great. And just a follow-up question, Megan, as we start this final round, what is your vision for the future of mental health and wellness? What are some elements of your vision for the future?
Yeah, so for me, there are two key things. The first is do the right thing. We have such a responsibility to our community and the people around us to be evidence-based, make sure the science is there, and to do things ethically. So this could be things like our team values and our ethos, to technology and design, to scientific research, and putting that all together and putting our best foot forward in serving our community. And the second thing was something I touched upon earlier, which is, I think going forward, it really is about meeting people where they are. And that essentially helps create sustainable change. So finding out what people like, for example, and what really lands right with you. And from a technology perspective, that looks like, again, removing guesswork and barriers for people.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for your work. Eli, what is your vision for the future of mental health and wellness?
Great question. When I think about mental health and wellness, and I think about the future, I want us to move away from "it's your fault" to "this is a community, a political, a social conversation that we need to be having about centering the question of mental health and wellness as a societal problem, a political problem, economic problem." And if we can start changing that conversation, we'll be able to attend to mental health and wellness a lot better than we have as a society, as a medical system, as a fitness world, whatever our world is, we'll be able to deal with it and help and support people in much different and better ways, in my mind.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the incredible research work that you are continuing to do. It's just wonderful. Carrie, how about you? What's your vision for the future of mental health and wellness?
I would love it if we get to a place where the world is just open and accepting of the conversation of mental health just as much as we are with our physical bodies, and that the perception of the physical fitness industry could be one of mental, like people come to us for their mental well-being just as much as their physical well-being, and that is an accepted truth, and that people just really are accepting mental health and wellness into their lives, into their conversations. And if we can get to a place like that in our society, I think we would definitely be moving our overall health as human beings.
Thank you. So well said. And Victor, how about you? What is your vision for the future of mental health and wellness?
As I stated at the beginning, the purpose of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation is to have salutogenic processes such as exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices integrated as an essential part of the mental health care delivery system. And I would hope that the mental health care delivery system would be looked at as a sustainable and a resilience model. And right now it's neither sustainable. Medication and psychoanalysis and institutions, that's not sustainable. The society is going to be overwhelmed by the mental health crisis if we don't do something. And what we need to do is be proactive. Salutogenic wellness programs are proactive. They're preventive. Medication, the medical community, that's reactive. You're reacting to the illness. And there's a point for that, a need for that. But I would like to think we would become more proactive in how we approach the treatment of mental health and of mental illness and the promotion of mental wellness by using salutogenic processes and avoiding the issues as much as possible to begin with, as opposed to waiting for them to occur and then treating. So resilience and sustainability, proactive as opposed to reactive by way of salutogenic processes in combination with traditional medical treatment.
Absolutely. Yeah. What the theme I hear is this kind of full spectrum mental health from the very beginning, where people feel comfortable talking about it. It's not stuck in the closet anymore. It's not shameful. It's not your fault. Being able to openly share, wow, I'm having a terrible time right now. My mental health I don't feel mentally well. And then being able to address that it's almost like when we approach mental health now, we're only using 10% of the resources we have to bring to bear on it, when we could be bringing 100% of our resources to bear on it, and really bringing a kind of circling the wagons around people who are feeling that way and giving them a variety of tools that they can draw upon, both them and their family members and loved ones who can do it when the person doesn't feel like they can do it for themselves. Well, I really appreciate all of you. You're all making incredible contributions in this domain, and we want to thank the convention conference organizers for having us. I'll do one final thing, which is to go ahead and let people know where they can reach you. You can learn more about the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation at johnwbrickfoundation.org. Megan?
You can find out more about Neurum Health at www.neurumhealth.com. That's Neurum Health.
Okay, Eli?
You can look for me at Eli Putnam at the University of British Columbia. But probably the best way to reach me is Eli, my Twitter feed, which is just at Eli Putnam.
Thank you. And Carrie?
I would send people also to IHRSA.org for some great research, especially in this area as well as if you want to find me, you can always go to www.stylesstudiosfitness.com and check out what we're about and contact us there.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.